Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing the brand new Netflix film Da 5 Bloods, directed by Spike Lee, which just came out on Netflix, and man, the same day Artemis Fowl and this movie came out, and I watched the worst movie of the year and the best movie of the year in the same day. What an experience, really. This movie is incredible from start to finish. I'm a big fan of Spike Lee. I luckily have the poster for BlacKkKlansman. I love that movie. If I can go back in my 2018 best of 2018 list, I would definitely bump that movie up higher. I said it in that video, and I will say it again here. BlacKkKlansman was really the movie of 2018 that kind of encapsulated that time period. Like, if you look back at every year, there's always a movie that kind of represents what that year stood for. And no, it was not Green Book. It was absolutely not that movie.
Is there something about Green Book that offends you? This is what I'm trying to get to.
Offend? Are you British?
Yeah.
Are you British?
I am.
Let me give you a British answer. It was my cup of tea. Not my cup of tea!
Although that says a lot about our society and about the Academy, the fact that that movie won Best Picture, but it was BlacKkKlansman that really said a lot about the world of 2018, and quite frankly, Spike Lee did it again. I think Da 5 Bloods is going to be the perfect representation of 2020 when we look back at it in film. This movie was incredible, from the performances, from the directing, from the emotional punch and the anger that you get out of watching this movie, because Spike Lee is unapologetically Spike Lee in all of his movies, but especially in this one, especially with the world that we're living in right now, this movie really has an impact. And Spike Lee has never really been one for subtlety. If you're in for a movie that has subtle themes of racism or of police brutality or of Black Lives Matter or all these things, this is not the film for you. This film is in your face, and I love that about this movie. Right from the beginning of the movie, like if you remember, if you've seen BlacKkKlansman, at the end of that film, you see some real life footage of what happened in Charlottesville a few years in 2017. This whole entire ridiculous Charlottesville incident that was just absurd that it happened in 2018. This film starts off with as much of an emotional punch as that film had at the ending, right at the beginning of this movie. So you know exactly what you're getting into right off the bat. And throughout this entire film, you see segments of real life footage that is actually really disturbing. And if it doesn't piss you off, then something is deeply wrong with you. There's some really, really dark stuff that Spike Lee shows in these real life footage sequences, and it has the punch that he wanted, and it works so well in this film. And so if you don't know what Da 5 Bloods is about, it's about 5 veterans who went to Vietnam, 5 black veterans who, after all these years, they're all kind of broken in some ways, especially our main character, played excellently by Delroy Lindo. He is incredible in this movie. He has a monologue, and you've been hearing about this monologue on Twitter or on social media everywhere, pretty much anybody who's talking about this movie. His monologue in this movie, that's pretty much just a stream of consciousness looking directly into the camera, kind of reminded me of scenes from Do the Right Thing, where they're looking right in the camera and they're talking to you directly to the audience. And it is a deeply impactful speech and monologue that was excellent from start to finish. This performance, especially from him, who has to play kind of a difficult role. His character is a Trump supporter. He wears a Make America Great Again hat, and it kind of stems some of the comedy in this movie, because obviously Spike Lee, he has some good jokes about our world today, but he has a very tough character to play, and there's interviews about how he was hesitant to play the role at first, but really he does such a great job at playing this role, and how damaged he was from being a Vietnam veteran, and just the pain and the PTSD and the trauma that he went through, and the anger that he feels, and the emotion that he has towards his son in this movie, which also a great performance by him, because he kind of tags along because he's kind of worried about his dad, and their relationship has never been too great. And there's an excellent scene about halfway through this movie, which if you've seen it, you probably know what I'm talking about, but you're at the edge of your seat, and this bond between these two characters are at the tightest points, and it's stressful. And these 5 characters are going back to Vietnam because when they were there, they took this gold that was supposed to be paid to the Vietnamese people who helped the US during the war, and they took this gold and they buried it for themselves, and they are going back after all these years to find it. But they're also going back to kind of find the remains of Chadwick Boseman's character who died back in Vietnam back in the day, and so they kind of also want to go back there to find him and to finally bring him home after all these years. So there's a lot of depth in terms of how Spike Lee feels about this war, and how everybody feels about the Vietnam War and the U.S. involvement in that war, and how kind of terrible it was in many ways. And this film really dives into the Vietnam War and the whole Vietnam just debates and all this stuff, but it takes place in a present day time period where you have the influences of our world that we're living in now, especially with the Black Lives Matter movements exploding in the past few weeks in the way that it has. There's a moment in this movie where you see some Black Lives Matter like chants in this movie from real life footage, which is awesome to see. And this movie, like I said, of all the movies that have come out so far this year and all the movies that will come out so far this year, this movie just takes what this year is and it puts it all in a movie. And when we look back at 2020, we're going to think of a lot of crazy shit because this year has been just insane. And this movie kind of captures all of it, which is just a bravo to Spike Lee. This is one of my favorite films I've seen from him. I haven't seen all his movies, but BlacKkKlansman, Do the Right Thing, and this movie are all excellent directorial efforts by Spike Lee. He is quickly becoming one of my favorite directors. He is unapologetically in your face, and I love that about him. So if you guys have any interest in watching this movie, watch it. If you have no interest in the movie, watch it. It's incredible. I love this movie. I don't really have any flaws with it. I think, man, I don't think I have any flaws with this movie. It might be a little slow at first at the beginning, but once it really gets into it, it's about like maybe a third of the way in. After the first act, it really punches into gear, and the ending is just excellent. And like I said, that one scene halfway through, edge of your seat stuff. It's so nail-biting intense. So I highly, highly recommend you guys to check out Da 5 Bloods. I might watch it again later this week. I loved it that much. So thanks guys for watching this video. Subscribe to the channel. Comment below what you guys thought of this movie. And if you want to see more of the 30-day film challenge that I've been doing, subscribe to the channel and check out my playlist that I have for all these films that I've been reviewing. This is not quite part of it, but I will have a review up for my favorite sequel of all time, which is The Dark Knight, tomorrow. So subscribe. Thanks guys for watching. I hope to see you all there.